welcome back to another stream. Today, I will be building Eevee from the new Lego Pokemon Wave. Here's the box, the set, 5 box art, Pokemon, then the number of them 133, and it's got 587 pieces, 6 bags, I think, and yeah, let's get into paper bags, which I feel like more and more sets that open up seem to be done. So that's sort of exciting to see. A lot of medium nougat on this build and tan. Don't believe any stickers. Just some printed elements. Alright, let's get into this build. Alright, starting with a 2x3 plate and some sloped elements, a few somewhat newer sloped elements. The second and third bags look quite short, and I guess without any stickers in this build, it'll go by relatively quickly. That certainly sort of slows up the build when you want to get those just perfectly applied. So, I feel like I haven't seen this element before. This hinged or bracket element, which I guess is going to be for the legs at some point. While putting this one together. Yeah, I think there's a few somewhat large printed elements, which is kind of nice. I believe I think it was like 85 or something like that Canadian. So the cheapest one of the wave, and the one that was sort of the most interesting to me. I wasn't a big fan of the look of the Pikachu, but I really like the look of Eevee here. So interested to see just how big this set is. Actually, when I think about it, I'm pretty sure it was built up at the Lego store when I went, but I was more looking at the big one, but I really have no recollection on what the size of this guy was at the store, but yeah, I think this one is, well, I guess it's under 600 pieces, so it's not going to be all that big, but yeah, I like the sloped elements and how tiled off it seems to be. A nice mix of exposed studs with tiled off areas. Some different snot elements. That's supposed to be applied. Now the other one of this, where are they? There we go, there's one, and there it is. It took a while to find those parts. Jeez. Alright, some cheese slopes. I don't think actually this section might be exposed on the build, but the other parts of the build so far I don't think are. But I guess that gives a decent idea of size. Because I'm assuming the tail will connect here, and then each of the legs. So certainly won't be a big build. Of course, the tail's got a bit more bulk to it once it's built up, but yeah, certainly won't be a huge build, which I'm fine with. I certainly kind of like smaller builds that do a lot more than the big stuff. Just after building some big ones, it takes up a whole lot of space. Interested to see and excited to see what they continue to do with this theme. Jeez, barely say so there. But yeah, should be interesting and see what they go for with this one and what they continue to do. Seemed like they had, at least when I got there, which was relatively later in the day, they had this and the other two, kind of easy. Actually, really, a lot of the March 1st stuff, I was sort of surprised just to see how much was sort of left over. There was, I feel like everything that I knew was releasing was relatively easily available. So yeah, I was kind of I wasn't necessarily expecting to pick this one up, because I wasn't really thinking it was going to be still in stock by the time I arrived. There was a decent amount of them, but yeah, some different bracket elements to get some fur attached later on in the build. Quite a few plates to start this build off, some hinged and bracket elements as well. Certainly a lot of tan and medium nougat to start off the build. I guess the head will be on a ball joint, which should give some nice articulation there, which is nice to see. I think the tail and the legs are going to be on hinged elements, so they can only be locked into a certain position, whereas the head should be able to move relatively easily on the ball joint. I like these curved slopes. They slightly longer ones. They can get some nice shapes across the build with the slightly longer ones. Interested to see, because there are a few, how many of the sort of unwanted colors are going to be seen throughout the build, but so far everything seems to be covered up pretty well, and I think with this, bag 1 is complete. So I guess this is a good indication on the size of the build. Definitely nothing too big. The tail will be back there, then the legs, and then the head, which I guess will take up quite a bit of the size of the build. So it won't be huge, but it definitely won't be a small little build either. Alright, bag 2. Okay, on to the leg spider. Look at it. This one thing with the paper bags is really making sure that you got all the elements out of there. Some interesting ones in medium nougat too. Used medium nougat a few times for different terrain builds. Did a Geonosis build relatively recently, I guess now it's actually a couple of years ago. But used a decent amount of medium nougat there. And a lot of these new, I feel like recolored slope elements seem like really useful builds for some sort of terrain like that. So some nice, I don't know if they're recolors for sure, but I feel like I haven't seen them in these colors. So they certainly seem like a nice color of sloped elements for different terrain builds. For I guess many different things. Doesn't necessarily need to be space themed or Star Wars themed, because I feel like medium nougat is a pretty versatile color, and I guess even buildings too can use the sloped elements. So some useful parts throughout the sets, and it also seems like it will be the first of the printed elements for Eevee's feet. Very small print, but yeah, it's nice to see all prints throughout the build. And there is the connecting bit to connect the legs once it's finished. So I guess there'll be 2 of them in this bag. So I see, I just saw it. There we go. The other printed elements. I guess you'll get some articulation at the feet as well. Those can move up and down. That'll look at. Did I do this right? Yeah, that looks right. Okay. It's a weird angle in the instruction manual. I can see if it did something wrong, but it looks all right. All right. Now this oval part. Few curved elements now, I guess, getting the more detailed bits of the leg with the fur. There's quite a few nice sloped curves in this set. Just some nice elements to get the shaping done better. I feel like they're not all that new elements. Well, this one's an interesting one. I feel like I haven't necessarily seen that, or at least in these colors. There we go. That covers up anything you wouldn't want to see. I like so far really the mix of tiled off and non-studded areas of the build with the with some of the exposed studs. Now I do see a little point in the build where you can see some dark or light bluish gray. So I guess it's not 100% covered up. You can, there's a little bit of it. I guess when you have the front on, you can't see it at all, but at the side, it's slightly visible. But nothing too egregious or something that stands out, so it's all right. The reverse versions of the sloped curve, pretty much the same thing now on the other side of the build. If I can actually build it correctly, that would be a good start to the thing. What exactly did I do wrong here? It started all right, and then I just started placing, I guess, things where I wanted to, and it went downhill from there. Alright, that looks better and is structurally sound, so Eevee's feet won't just fall apart when placed down on a surface. Doing a real good job of just completely skipping steps so far in this build, or I guess this particular section of the build. Alright, same idea as the last time. To connect the leg to the body, and then the feet built up the exact same with the low printed elements. Alright. I quite like the shaping so far of this build. These sloped curves really add to the build. There's it definitely would be interesting to see how they would tackle a build like this a couple years ago, because without these sloped curves, they really add something to the build that you wouldn't have necessarily been able to achieve a few years ago. So some nice relatively recent additions to the parts palette that certainly elevate a build like this. Same thing on this side. You can slightly see a little bit of light bluish gray, but it's not all too bad, and I think it might actually be somewhat covered up once the head is added and add some shadow to to the build. All right, there's the front legs, and now bag too, a pretty full bag by the feel of it. Couple more printed elements, I guess, for the bottom of Eevee Suite, maybe. Oh, and I guess there should actually be a couple more, the same ones as the last time. I guess that's where it makes it much easier to have all printed elements when you have them repeated over and over, similar to the DeLorean from this year, where that had so many prints, and I think it was down to the fact that a lot of the prints were repeated, which just makes it a whole lot easier to, or I would assume so, to print the part instead of having it be a sticker. Same type of slope curves as the last time. I quite like all the medium nougat in the build. It's definitely a color I quite like in LEGO, and I've used a decent bit in mocks and stuff like that, but I feel like not necessarily in sets. So a nice color to add to the shelf, make it pop a little bit more. And this definitely, I think, will be a model that I'm going to be happy to display. It seems like a nice one. And printed element. Tiling the build off with all these sloped curves. That's quite nice. Just it's crazy how well they've gotten really to just tiling things off. It certainly adds to the set. I feel like most of the time. I do like a few exposed studs, and I think this set does a good job mixing that. Same idea as the last one with an oval shaped element, and now I think should be able to stand up relatively easily with 3 legs. And now the same thing, just on the other side. I'm enjoying the build so far. There's some really fun sloped curves, so some fun just tiling work with this set, and just enjoying doing that. And I guess it's mainly sort of built up with different modified bricks. Not a ton of plates so far. Yeah. All right, these same 2 stud tall, or is it? No, it's a stud. This would be 1.5 1.5 or 1.25 or something like that. I don't entirely know what the element would be called in terms of height, because it's certainly not a sort of in the middle. It's I think it's one brick tall plus one plate worth of height. The same snot brick elements. I quite like this section of the build. I think it's been my favorite so far. Just how well it's tiled off and how well everything fits together to create a really smooth surface. I'm impressed with how it's built up. Pretty much the same as the last one. And the last few elements, no extra pieces in this bag, because if less smaller elements. And with that, Eevee's legs and body is, I think, mainly built up. Alright, different part of the build now. 4 bags. It is the tail. To continue with it with these tiles, these reverse tile elements, which I was using yesterday when I was designing a build. They certainly came in handy designing it. Alright, the snot bricks to attach some of the fur later on. And, this bag certainly is quite a few bricks into it, less smaller elements and smaller plates, a lot of larger elements, I guess, to build up the bulkiness of the tail, because next to the head, it's definitely feels like the biggest section of the build. And I guess with this hinged element, the tail will have some articulation to it. I will be able to move side to side. And hopefully, with all these colorful yellow and orange elements, I don't think they will be able to, it will be visible. It seems like they'll probably be covered up by quite a few different fur elements. And no, I think looking at the tail on the box, I think this bag will finish it. For a second, it seemed like I was going through the parts quite quickly and wasn't going to finish this section of the build in this bag, but looking at what parts are included and what is left, I think this this section of the build will be finished. With this bag, 2 bags left after this, and I guess it will pretty much just be the head and maybe some additional fur elements around the body, but I think mostly just the head will be left after this. Some nice sloped elements, a cone element now for the tip of the tail. It fits in quite nicely. And back to the usual sloped curves of this build that's been very prevalent throughout it. This particular element has shown up a lot in the build, definitely more than I feel like I've ever seen it in the build. I feel like it's not necessarily a piece I've worked with too much in LEGO sets, and now that lines up very nicely. I've been impressed really so far with how well they've done with the shaping of the build. I think it's very well done, which I didn't find was necessarily the case with the buildable Pikachu, the big one, with Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise seemed nice in terms of those builds, but the Pikachu didn't necessarily interest me all that much, because I just didn't find the shaping all that impressive, especially around the face. It just looked a bit odd to me, whereas this one, while building, it seems like it's very, very well done, and I like how this tail's been built up so far. Enjoying this guy. I like liking the building experience of it, and the result of that as well. It's so far pretty nice. Certainly small. It's I guess for the price point, it's probably a little bit small. Actually, definitely for this price point, I feel like it's small, but it's certainly I like what's being done with the build, and I'm pretty happy with the size of it, really. Just a nice solid build, and with this Nexo Knight's shield piece in place, the tail is in there, which can move in that direction, which I guess is not necessarily where you'd want, but side to side moves quite nicely, and it stands up. Definitely I can feel the weight of the tail. It's definitely, even though it's a small build, it's a heavy build, for sure. Alright, so 5. Bag of the build. And beginning the head. There's looks like 3 or actually 4 printed elements at the face, which I think, by the look of it, unless they're in this very tiny bag, which I doubt because they're kind of large elements, will be in the final bag, bag 6. there's been some really solid stuff from January, February, and March for Lego this year. Speed Champions, I thought the 3 movie sets, especially, or I guess more the Lightning McQueen and DeLorean, I thought were really good. Ninjago Legacy, I think, has had a really good wave of stuff. Something else, the Creel House was another that I thought was really well done. And this Eevee, I think, is going to join my list of some of my favorite stuff from this year, because I'm really impressed with the build so far. So a solid one. The connection point for the ball joint. Certainly the most color so far in the build in this particular section, but I think it will be all covered up with different slopes and different curves and such that you won't be able to see it. So I guess it's fine at that point to have the colored elements. Certainly makes it a little bit easier to find certain elements at this point in the bag when everything is poured out. You have quite a few elements to work with. Now finally getting some medium nougat in the build, with the build that has so much of it. It was odd going through a few steps that didn't have any of it. Yeah, some plates. Feels like there hasn't been a ton of plates throughout the build. Some inverted sloped elements, I guess, probably helping to guide the position of the head. And some more medium nougat with the inverted sloped curves. I guess this may be the side of the head, but I don't know, sort of hard to identify. Other parts of the build were a bit easier to identify where exactly they were going in the build, but not entirely sure with this section so far. I think it just makes up the side of the head, though. Slope curves. Ooh, this one's a large one. This sloped curve element. Quite a large one, actually. But yeah, there's been a lot of slope curves so far, but not this one, and 2 of them at that. But all these slope curves have really helped achieve the shape of the build. And I guess that's what it is, just building up some of the shape of the face of Eevee. Same thing on this side. With all these different sloped and tiled elements. Certainly a lot more plates in this section, especially compared to the last couple bags that were quite brick heavy to build up the bulk of the tail, as well as those back legs. large slopes. If I actually do this correctly and follow the instructions, that would be a much better method to success than just sort of going with whatever I was doing a second ago. There we go. That looks a bit more proper and correct. And now it just goes on there. And the last few parts of this bag 5, the penultimate bag of the build. All right, bag 6. Oh, that's kind of fun. Oh, there's quite a few parts to feel like the biggest bag so far. But there's a fun little detail coming up in the build. I'm not sure how easy it will be to access when everything is covered up, but it's a fun little detail in the next couple of parts. Now let me find these nice printed elements. There's one eye, there's the nose, and we've got the mouth that's going to be on one of these slopes. Certainly quite tail heavy, but I guess when the head's in there it will balance it out a little bit better. The other eye there, and the mouth, which is, I think, on one of these type of slopes. I guess I'll just get to it at some point in the build. All right. Get to it when I get to it. Some more medium nougat. A ton of it in this set. Definitely the most I feel like I've seen in a set, or at least a set that I've built. I can't really remember where I was using this much medium nougat. And now the fun little detail. They have you placing 8 of these little curved tiles, and 8 of them, and in the colors of the Eevee evolutions, which is certainly fun and cute, and yeah, it's a nice little detail in the build. There it is. I'm not entirely sure, and I doubt it is relatively accessible, but yeah, I'm sure it's going to be covered up, and it already seems like it's going to be not all that easy to access, but a fun little detail while building this set. A few more bits of orange. I guess. I guess a lot of the structure of the build. Now, I actually probably is. Much of the structure of the build, even though the blue that they use for the structure isn't necessarily the blue they use for Vaporeon here, but much of the structure, whether intentional or not, is made from blue, yellow, and orange for Vaporeon, Flareon, and Jolteon. So, whether that's intentional or not, it feels like it's so prominent, at least the orange and the yellow, that it was intentional. But who knows? Maybe they just had a bunch of it left over, had to use it, and this was set that they used it in. But yeah, certainly maybe a little bit of a detail. The other one, definitely a very intentional one to have the 8 tiles. And now those are about to be, but this part is easy enough to take off that you can access that little detail in the build. At least so far, might be covered up by a few too many plates in the upcoming steps to get access to it. But, all right, starting the face of Eevee. And the mouth. Where is it? There it is. Got Eevee's little mouth print, very cute. The next slopes that go alongside it. A few of these curved plate elements. There we go. Nice. Yeah, I love how sloped off this set is. It's and just tiled off with a mix of. Actually, you'll be able to sort of see it from the side, I think, because I think it's just going to. Yeah, well, it's just going to attach into the side there, so you can pull it out and see the little colored details of the evolutions on the side of the build. The nose, and to finish Eevee's face, the tiles. There's Eevee. Very cute. Very nice prints. Alright, now that just can click on in there, and let me see how easy it is to access this. Yeah, it's relatively easy to access that little detail, because there's certainly a few cases I feel like where they will do it and it's a bit harder to access, and you just have it in the build and you see it while building it, but you're not going to really ever see it again. And then there's stuff like the Star Wars MIDI scale sets where you're sort of meant to open it up and get to those little details in the build. This one sort of feels like a mix of the two, where it's relatively easy to access, but not a necessary detail, I guess, for the experience of the set, but one while building it, but it's sort of a fun little detail. Alright. Last few steps of the build, I would think. Alright, I think I've got that done correctly. These dome type elements to attach to the side there. Yep, cool. All fits quite nicely. What was supposed to be built? There we go. One second. I need to check this because I don't believe okay, I see what I did. Relatively simple and easy fix. There we go. There we go. And there we go. And with that, decent bit of Eevee's head complete. A few more sloped elements. Alright, now it goes on there, looks a bit odd now, with the, without the ears. There we go, if you like that. Sort of does it pretty well. Okay, last couple steps of the build, being the ears certainly looks a bit odd at this point without those big ears. These few slopes. Builds. I have one more set that I picked up March 1st to build. The Audi F1 car, which I'm going to be building this Friday on stream. Seems like a good one to welcome in the new season. But the other set I built was the Batman vs Superman Batmobile, which was a set that I enjoyed, but in the end, when I sort of thought about it, I didn't feel necessarily that satisfied with the build. So yeah, it's an interesting one, and but yeah, this one I think will definitely be my favorite March 1st set of the build that I built, and honestly one of my favorite sets of the year so far. It's a really nice one, very cute, very well done. Love how curved it is, sloped it is. It's a hefty build. You know, it's definitely not a big build, but there's a lot of parts that go into the body and the head and the tail. So it's definitely, it's not the biggest footprint of a 900 or not 900, 587 piece set, so almost 600 piece set. Definitely not the biggest footprint of a set like that. Those years I feel like are too high. Is that better? Maybe they were there. That looks alright. Alright, and that is the build. So you start off with Eevee leaping in and then running away at the end of the and you have enough of the extra parts for an extra set of those tiles with the evolution details. But yeah, nice build. I like it. It's kind of a hefty one. There's really nice printed elements. I love the face. It's so cute. And of sort of the unwanted colors, there's a little bit of dark bluish gray and light bluish gray throughout, like this hinged element there at the back of the tail. But overall, I think they do a good job covering up what makes up the inside of the build, and then they did a really good job with the sloped elements. I enjoy this little guy. Yeah, so that was the Lego Pokemon Eevee, the first Pokemon set that I built, and I really enjoy this guy. I really like it. It's a very cute build, very well done build. I love all the sloped curves that they used for it, and yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it. So I'm excited to see where the theme goes from here. I think it has a few sets coming out in the summer, some smaller actually no, I think there was an update on the price points, and they were a little bit higher, but not as high as like that big Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise set. But yeah, solid set. Enjoyed it. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this stream, anyone who watched during it and after. Um, thank you very much. And yeah, that is Eevee. So for upcoming streams, gonna do one Friday for another March 1st set, being the Audi F1 car. But yeah, that's Eevee. You've got some articulation at the feet and the legs. The head can swivel. It's sort of always pointed upwards with these, with just how the curves, inverted curves are used. They position the head upwards at all times, and the tail can just move side to side, which feels like a cute little Eevee motion. But yeah, very cute. I wouldn't mind seeing ones that are scaled to this for the other evolutions. Of course, those would be even bigger sets at that point, but I'm sure they'd be pretty cute, and I'd certainly get an Umbreon. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this stream, and I will see you in the next one on Friday for the Audi F1 car to welcome in the new season. Good luck to Oscar, and yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.
Goodbye.